Okay, so today we're diving into something that is frankly a bit of a medical mystery. We're unpacking some fascinating insights straight from leading Japanese physicians about a hidden health crisis, and it's one that silently affects millions of people. But don't worry, we're not just going to talk about the problem, we're also going through a highly specific daily prevention guide to literally stop it in its tracks. The source material we're covering in today's explainer, it could actually save a life, maybe even your own.
So, I want to start off by asking you something crucial. Have you ever heard of the devil's hours? Yeah, it sounds intense, right? It's this very specific window of time during the day when sudden, life-threatening health events, specifically strokes, are overwhelmingly likely to strike. It's kind of like this invisible ticking clock inside your body. Now, to understand why this clock exists, and better yet, how we can completely hack it, we need to look at a pretty shocking medical paradox that's playing out in Japan right now.
380,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. In Japan, cancer deaths have hit a truly staggering 380,000 every single year, making it the absolute #1 cause of death. And, on its own, that number is heartbreaking. But it actually becomes a genuine head-scratching mystery when you look at it in the wider context of modern medicine. Because here's the thing, over the last 50 years, the number of doctors in Japan has grown by 2.5 times. We've seen explosive, exponential growth in medical research, crazy advanced treatments and diagnostic tools, so you'd logically think that with 2.5 times the doctors and a half-century of literal medical miracles, these mortality numbers would absolutely plummet, right? But they haven't. And this paradox, it's not just about cancer. It actually extends to the other top killers hiding right in our modern lifestyle.
When we look at Japan's shifting causes of death, there is a massive clue hiding in plain sight. So cancer is first, right? That's followed by myocardial infarction, which is basically deadly blood clots in the heart. Third is old age. And fourth is cerebrovascular disease, which we commonly know as strokes, claiming around 100,000 lives a year. But the really fascinating part here is the historical shift. Back in the day, strokes in Japan were mostly cerebral hemorrhages. That's when a blood vessel bursts. But today, the data shows this dramatic, westernized shift towards cerebral infarctions. Those are strokes caused by blood clots actually blocking the flow to the brain. We basically become a society plagued by clotting blood. So the big questions are, why? And exactly when does this happen?
All right, let's really get into this, because this timeline is literally the key to everything. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., your body temperature drops to its absolute lowest point. And statistically speaking, this is when the overall death rate from various causes actually peaks. But the specific danger for strokes ramps up right after that. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., as you're waking up, your autonomic nervous system makes this massive physiological switch. It goes from a resting, parasympathetic state into an active, sympathetic state. And when that switch flips, your blood pressure instantly spikes, your pulse quickens, and, this is absolutely crucial, your blood platelets increase. This literally causes your blood to thicken. Because of this perfect storm of morning physiology, 8 a.m. becomes the peak time, the devil's hour for cerebral infarctions.
Because that morning window is just so incredibly dangerous. You really need to memorize these critical warning signs. If you're waking up between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and you suddenly experience numbness in your hands or feet, or maybe an inability to move your limbs, slurred speech, or even just sudden unexplained dizziness, you are in the danger zone. I really cannot stress this enough. If any of these symptoms hit during those morning hours, do not take a wait-and-see approach. You literally do not have the time to see if it just goes away.
The instruction from the source material is completely unequivocal. If those signs pop up during that morning window, you have to call an ambulance immediately. The reason speed is absolutely everything here is because of this modern medical miracle called TPA. TPA is a super powerful clot-dissolving drug. If emergency responders give it to you early enough, it can literally dissolve the blockage in your brain and prevent permanent paralysis. But, it only works if you act incredibly fast.
Okay, so this brings us to the real root cause of why this is happening to so many people today. The doctors in our source material use this brilliant, intuitive metaphor. They say, water turns to ice when cooled, food hardens in the freezer. It's just basic physics, right? When things get cold, they harden, they solidify. Well, your blood is no different. Blood clots actually form and harden when the environment inside your body becomes too cold.
So the culprit here is this historic, frankly terrifying drop in average body temperature. To put this into perspective, back in 1957, the average Japanese body temperature was a nice, robust, warm 36.9 degrees Celsius. Now look at where it is today.
It's hovering between 35.8 and 36.2 degrees. Modern humans are basically walking around with fundamentally colder bodies than our grandparents had. We're living in this slightly refrigerated state. And because our internal temperature is lower, our blood is just way more prone to hardening and clotting, especially during those freezing morning hours.
Section 1. The strongest diet to warm the body.
So, how do we fix these dropping body temperatures? Well, we have to start from the inside out. Eastern medicine actually provides this fascinating, super memorable rule of thumb for this. Generally speaking, foods that are pale, white, blue, or green tend to cool the body down. On the flip side, foods that are dark, red, black, or fermented, they warm the body up. So instead of cold-inducing milk, you'd choose fermented cheese. Instead of pale udon noodles, you go for dark buckwheat soba. Swap white wine for red wine, green tea for black tea or bancha, and definitely ditch refined white sugar entirely for mineral-rich brown sugar. Making these simple, color-based swaps can fundamentally change your internal thermostat.
And you know what's crazy? This rule even applies to things we've always considered universally healthy, like fruits and vegetables. You might think a big, raw, green leafy salad is incredibly healthy. And sure, it has vitamins, but raw, green foods actually cool your body temperature down. The same thing goes for southern tropical fruits like bananas and pineapples. Think about it. They're designed by nature to cool you off in a hot climate. So if your goal is to prevent blood clots by warming up, you should really opt for cooked vegetables, stir-fries, and root veggies, and stick to northern fruits grown in colder climates, like apples and prunes.
Section 2. Night routines that protect your life.
Okay, so diet is a fantastic foundation. But remember, because these deadly clots strike between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., we have to prepare the night before. This brilliantly illustrates how we can essentially hack our body's timeline using 3 simple, intuitive evening steps. Step 1. Eat natto, which is a fermented soybean dish, with your dinner. Step 2. Drink a very specific concoction of hot ginger black tea with brown sugar right before you go to sleep. And Step 3. Follow the ancient health principle of keeping your head cool and your feet warm. You can do this by just throwing on some socks or putting a hot water bottle at the base of your bed. This pulls blood away from the head and safely circulates it throughout your whole body.
Let's break down exactly why these specific steps work so well, starting with the natto. Natto contains this incredibly powerful enzyme called nattokinase. It's actually famous for its ability to dissolve clots right in your blood vessels. But here is the secret: timing. Once you eat natto, that enzyme works in your system for about 10 to 12 hours. If you eat it at breakfast, the effect completely wears off by the evening. But if you eat it at dinner, nattokinase is actively working in your bloodstream overnight, and its clot-busting power peaks right at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., literally exactly during the devil's hours. How cool is that?
Now for your new nightcap: hot ginger black tea with brown sugar. So black tea is a dark, fermented drink which naturally warms the body. But when you add grated ginger, you are introducing 2 magical compounds into the mix: gingerol and sugarol. These aromatic compounds do something amazing. They actually suppress platelet aggregation. In plain English, they actively stop your blood cells from clumping together and thickening as your nervous system switches gears in the morning. Plus, the warming effect naturally promotes a much deeper, more restorative sleep. It is, for sure, the ultimate preventative cocktail.
So you survive the morning danger zone with your night routine. Your next objective hits at exactly 10 a.m. This is the time when the human body typically reaches its average daily temperature. Your goal here is to make sure your temperature is at least a healthy, warm 36.5 degrees Celsius by 10 a.m. And you achieve this not just through that warming diet we talked about, but by getting your muscles moving with a brisk morning walk and maybe taking warm baths or saunas instead of just a quick rushed morning shower. Actually, one of the doctors in our source material is a 77-year-old expert who is incredibly frail in his youth, but today he credits this exact temperature-raising lifestyle for his perfect, clot-free health.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this explainer. You now know the science of the devil's hours. You know exactly how cold hardens the blood, and you have the precise diet and night routine to stop it in its tracks. The only thing left to do is apply it. So tomorrow morning, when the clock strikes 10 a.m., what will your body temperature be? Will you be stuck in that dangerous cold zone, or will you have taken control of your internal thermostat? Check your temperature, start hacking your timeline, and most importantly, stay healthy. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll see you in the next explainer.